The Terran storm arrived, fleets vanished. Part 1. The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in deep red as Ambassador watched the footage for the fifth time. His four eyes tracked every detail, searching for something his military analysts might have missed. There had to be an explanation. Ships didn't simply cease to exist. The holographic display showed the final moments of the patrol fleet. 3 vessels, each the size of a small city, hung in the darkness near the border of what the humans called their sphere of influence. The timestamp indicated this happened 6 days ago. The ships were conducting routine monitoring, the kind of operation the Galactic Council had performed for thousands of years across hundreds of systems. Then the sensors detected something approaching. The footage showed a blur like watching something move through water. The patrol commander's voice crackled through the recording, calm and professional. Unidentified contact, all vessels, defensive posture, broadcasting standard identification request. The blur resolved into shapes. Ships, clearly artificial but unlike anything in the Council's databases. They were angular where Council vessels were curved, dark where most ships gleamed with running lights. There were perhaps 20 of them, small compared to the patrol fleet's massive dreadnoughts. Leaned forward. This was the part that made his blood run cold every time. The patrol fleet fired warning shots, bright lances of antimatter that could vaporize a moon. The weapons struck the unknown vessel's dead center. The explosions lit up the void, brilliant and devastating. When the light faded, the unknown ships were still there, undamaged, not even slowed down. Then they fired back. There was no visible beam, no missile trail, no energy discharge. Space itself seemed to fold around the patrol ships. The massive dreadnoughts compressed inward, metal and ceramic screaming, as millions of tons of matter collapsed into points of light no larger than a fingertip. The points flickered once, then vanished. 3 seconds, 3 ships gone, not destroyed, not damaged, simply removed from existence. The recording ended. The probe that captured the footage had jumped to FTL immediately after, following emergency protocols. It was the only reason anyone knew what happened. "Play it again," said OK from his seat at the curved council table. The massive reptilian being shifted his weight, scales rasping against stone. "We've seen it enough," snapped Han. The crystalline representative pulsed with agitated light. "The question is what we do about it." Turned off the display. "We don't even know who attacked them. The ships don't match any known configuration." "They came from human space," OK said. His voice carried the weight of certainty. "The trajectory is clear. They came from the direction of Sol." "The humans." Han's light dimmed with what might have been amusement or disbelief. "The species that still uses chemical rockets for orbital insertion. The ones who just discovered antimatter containment 20 cycles ago." "Unlikely doesn't mean impossible," said quietly. He'd been the Council's liaison to humanity for the past decade. He'd walked on Earth, met with their leaders, studied their culture. They were primitive by galactic standards, yes, but there was something about them. A restlessness. A refusal to accept limitations. The council chamber fell silent. Around them, representatives from 24 species waited for someone to propose a solution. The council had governed this region of the galaxy for 10,000 years. In all that time, no one had simply destroyed patrol fleets without warning, negotiation, or even communication. "We send a proper military fleet," OK finally declared. "Not a patrol, a battle group. If pirates have acquired some new weapon and are using human space as cover, we eliminate them. If the humans themselves have somehow developed this capability and feel bold enough to attack us, we remind them of their place." "A strong response," said carefully. "But perhaps we should attempt diplomatic contact first. If the humans are responsible, there may be a misunderstanding we can resolve." "Misunderstanding," OK's eyes fixed on him. "They destroyed 3 ships without warning, without even a demand or ultimatum. That's not a misunderstanding, that's an act of war. The vote was swift. 20 species voted to send a military fleet. Only and 2 others abstained. Within hours, Admiral was given command of the Supreme Adjudicator and 2 full battle groups. 53 ships of the line, more firepower than most wars ever saw deployed. Watched the fleet depart from the observation deck of Consensus Prime. The massive vessels accelerated away from the station, their fusion drives leaving trails of brilliant light against the stars. He thought about the humans he'd met. The diplomats who smiled too much and talked about friendship while their eyes calculated every advantage. The scientists who asked innocent questions that revealed how much they'd already figured out on their own. The soldiers who moved with casual efficiency that suggested they'd been training for wars they hoped never to fight. He wondered if the Council had made a terrible mistake. 5 days later, Admiral's fleet arrived at the coordinates where the patrol had vanished. The Admiral was a veteran of 3 major conflicts and dozens of minor ones. He'd commanded everything from single ships to armadas. As he studied the tactical display, he felt something he rarely experienced: uncertainty. "Debris field analysis?" he asked. His sensor officer, a young named Hose, looked up from her console. "It's strange, sir. The debris doesn't match any known damage pattern. It's like the ships were compressed and then scattered. The molecular structure is intact, but the atomic arrangement is wrong. It's as if space itself was twisted around them." "Radiation signatures. Present but not from any weapon we recognize. It's not antimatter, not fusion, not even dimensional shearing. It's something else." His mandibles clicked together in thought. 40 years in the fleet, and he'd never encountered a mystery quite like this. "Continue scanning. I want to know everything about what happened here." The fleet spread out in standard search formation, sensors at maximum range. They maintained constant communication, no one wanting to become another unexplained disappearance. 3 hours into the search, the sensors detected something. "Contact?" Ho's voice rose in pitch. "Multiple contacts bearing 273 Mark 15. They're big, sir, really big." Pulled up the sensor data. The contacts were emerging from FTL, their signatures growing stronger by the second. The computers tried to match them against known vessel types and failed. Unknown configuration, unknown propulsion signature, unknown energy readings. "Count?" asked, forcing his voice to remain calm. "Still resolving, at least 200. No more. They're still coming out of FTL, sir. 300, 400. The tactical display showed a swarm of red icons appearing in a spherical formation around the fleet. Combat implants flooded his system with stimulants, sharpening his thoughts. This was it. Whatever destroyed the patrol was here. "All ships combat alert, shields to maximum, weapons free, transmit on all frequencies. This is Admiral of the Galactic Council Fleet. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came not in words but in action. The unknown vessels accelerated toward the Council Fleet. Not at high speed, but with terrible inevitability, like storm clouds rolling across a plain. "Fire ordered." The Council fleet opened up with everything they had: antimatter lances that could crack continents, missile swarms that could overwhelm planetary defenses, energy beams hot enough to ignite atmospheres. The void lit up with destruction, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. The unknown vessels didn't dodge. They flew straight through the barrage. Watched in horror as his weapons simply passed through the enemy ships, not deflected, not absorbed. The beams and missiles went through solid hulls as if they weren't there. "Impossible," Hose whispered. "The sensors show solid matter. They're real, but the weapons aren't connecting. It's like they're out of phase with our reality." Then the unknown vessels fired back. Saw it happen to the dreadnought Eternal Truth first. A pulse of something invisible struck the massive warship. Space warped around it, visible to the naked eye, reality bending like heated glass. The eternal truth folded inward, its kilometer-long hull compressing impossibly into itself. Metal screamed across the communication channels. Then silence. Where a mighty warship had been, there was nothing. Not debris, not energy, nothing. Evasive maneuvers, shouted. All ships scatter pattern delta. It didn't matter. The unknown vessels moved with perfect coordination, like schools of fish or flocks of birds. Wherever a council ship tried to flee, the enemy was already there. The pulses came faster now, methodical and precise. The steadfast defender compressed into nothing. The light of reason folded into a point and vanished. The pride of victory crumpled like paper in a fist. His tactical display showed his fleet dying. 53 ships becoming 40, 40 becoming 30, each one simply ceasing to exist. Jump to FTL, he ordered. All ships emergency jump now. But the unknown vessels had already thought of that. Something was disrupting the FTL fields, keeping the Council ships locked in normal space. Trapped. The Admiral realized with terrible clarity that this wasn't a battle. It was an execution. 20 ships left, 15, 10. Sir, we're surrounded, Hose reported, her voice breaking. Multiple targets locked on us. Looked at his crew. Young faces, old faces, different species united in service to the Council. They'd done nothing wrong. They'd followed orders, served with honor. I'm sorry, he said quietly. The pulse hit the supreme adjudicator. Felt space twist around him, felt his body being pulled in directions that shouldn't exist. The last thing he saw was the tactical display winking out, one by one, as the remaining ships vanished. Then nothing. A single automated probe, too small for the unknown vessels to bother with, jumped to FTL and fled toward Council space. Its memory banks held footage of the entire engagement. 17 minutes from first shot to complete annihilation. 53 ships of the line, gone without destroying even one enemy vessel. The probe's message would reach the Council in 4 days. The unknown vessels hung in space for a moment, dark and angular against the stars. Then they turned as one and accelerated back toward human space, vanishing into FTL as silently as they'd arrived. Behind them, where one of the galaxy's most powerful battle groups had existed, there was nothing but empty space and scattered particles of matter that had once been ships. The storm had come, and it had swept everything before it into darkness. Part 2. The Council chamber was not built for panic, but panic filled it anyway. Stood at the central podium, watching representatives from dozens of species shout over each other. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others wanted to flee to the far reaches of known space. A few simply sat in silence, processing what the probe's footage had shown them. Order, Okay's voice boomed through the chamber. His massive form rose from his seat. We will have order. The shouting gradually died to angry murmurs. Okay's gaze swept across the assembly. We have all seen the footage. We know what we face. Now we must decide how to respond. Respond how? Han's crystalline form pulsed with rapid, anxious light. We sent 53 warships. They lasted 17 minutes. What response can we possibly mount? The humans did this, Okay said. It must be the humans. The vessels came from their space, returned to their space. No other explanation makes sense. Activated the holographic display. I've been reviewing our interactions with humanity over the past 50 cycles. There's a pattern I think we missed. The display showed a timeline. Red marks appeared along it, scattered but growing more frequent in recent years. Each of these marks represents an incident, explained. A human exploration vessel detained for entering restricted space. A human colony transport rerouted because we determined the target system was too close to Council worlds. Human research stations shut down because their experiments violated protocols they weren't informed of. Standard governance, Okay growled. Junior species must be guided until they're ready for full autonomy. They protested each incident through diplomatic channels, continued. Formal complaints, requests for clarification, appeals for reconsideration, all or ignored. Because they were unreasonable requests, Hand said. They wanted freedom to expand without restriction, to research dangerous technologies, to operate outside our framework. We couldn't allow it. Turned to face her. 3 cycles ago, a human colony ship vanished near the threshold sector. The humans asked us to investigate. We told them it had likely encountered a natural hazard. 2 cycles ago, another vanished. Then another. The humans became more insistent. They claimed they had evidence their ships were being intercepted and destroyed. Baseless accusations, OK said. Were they? Pulled up another file. I accessed classified Council military records. Those colony ships were destroyed by Council peacekeeping forces. They were headed toward systems we had marked for future expansion. The Council decided it was easier to eliminate a few hundred humans than risk them establishing claims we'd have to respect later. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. That's different, Hand said finally. That was strategic necessity, the greater good of galactic order. Tell that to the humans who lost their families, said quietly. Tell them it was necessary. Tell them their lives matter less because they're a young species. What's your point? OK demanded. My point is we treated them like children at best, like vermin at worst, and now they've shown us they're neither. Gestured to the frozen image from the probe footage, showing a Council dreadnought folding into nothingness. This is our answer. Then we give them their answer in return, OK said. We mobilize everything. Every ship, every weapon, every species contributes their best forces. If humanity wants war, we'll show them what the combined might of the galaxy can do. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only a handful of others opposed the measure. Within hours, the call went out across Council space. The greatest armada in galactic history would be assembled. But something else was happening that no one in the Council noticed at first. The human diplomatic staff began leaving. They didn't make announcements or formal goodbyes. They simply packed their belongings, boarded transports, and departed. The human embassy on Consensus Prime went dark. Human trade ships stopped arriving at Council ports. Human communication networks stopped responding to Council transmissions. It was like watching a door close, quietly but firmly. Tried to contact his counterpart on Earth, Ambassador Sarah. He'd worked with her for years, developed what he thought was mutual respect if not friendship. His messages went unanswered. The embassy staff were gone. Even the automated systems had been shut down. On the 3rd day of silence, a single message arrived at every Council world simultaneously. It was brief, delivered by a human woman in a military uniform. She spoke calmly, without emotion. This is Fleet Admiral Elizabeth of the Terran Defense Corps. For the past 50 standard years, humanity has attempted to exist peacefully within the framework of the Galactic Council. We followed your rules. We accepted your restrictions. We asked politely for reasonable accommodations. Each protest was ignored. When our civilians were murdered, you told us it was necessary for galactic stability. The Admiral paused, her dark eyes staring directly at the camera. You treated us like we didn't matter because we were young, because our technology was primitive, because you could. You thought we would accept our place. You were wrong. Behind her, through a viewport, ships could be seen. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all in formations that suggested military precision. The fleets you sent to intimidate us no longer exist. The vessels you sent to investigate have been neutralized. We will not negotiate our right to exist as equals. We will not accept second-class status. We will not forgive the murders of our people. The Admiral's expression remained calm, but something cold flickered in her eyes. To the species of the Galactic Council, We hold your military personnel in quantum stasis. They are alive, unharmed, and will remain so. They can be returned to you if you agree to the following terms. Acknowledge human sovereignty over all systems currently inhabited or claimed by humanity. Remove all restrictions on human expansion and research. Formally apologize for past actions against human civilians. Agree to a new treaty establishing humanity as a full and equal member of galactic civilization. She leaned forward slightly. You have 30 days to respond. Further military action against humanity or human interests will result in the permanent removal of your forces from space-time. We will not negotiate these terms. We will not compromise. Accept them or face the consequences. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in fury. Representatives shouted about human arrogance, about teaching them humility, about total war. OK demanded immediate deployment of the forming armada, but sat quietly, thinking about those ships in the background of the transmission, thinking about how the humans had gone from primitive kinetic weapons to reality-warping technology in less than a generation, thinking about what kind of desperation, what kind of fear, what kind of brilliance it must have taken to achieve that, and thinking about what else they might have built that they hadn't shown yet. Over the next 20 days, the Council Armada grew. 3,000 warships from a dozen species. The largest military force ever assembled. Enough firepower to reduce a star to ash. The gathering point was established at the threshold of stars, a neutral region of space between Council territory and the Outer Rim. The commanders met in virtual conference, planning the assault on human space. They would jump directly to Sol, humanity's home system, and force immediate surrender. Show overwhelming force. Make it clear that cooperation was humanity's only option. On day 25, received a private message. It was from Ambassador Sarah, his old counterpart. Just a brief text transmission. They're going to make an example of Earth, she wrote. You need to understand something. The ships you destroyed weren't warships. They were scouts. Humanity's actual military assets never left Sol's system. If your armada attacks our home, you'll discover exactly how frightened we've been and what fear made us build. Please stop this. There's still time for peace. Tried to bring the message to the council's attention. He was dismissed. Sarah was clearly trying to bluff, to frighten them away from decisive action. The armada would proceed as planned. On day 30, exactly as scheduled, 3,000 warships jumped into Sol's system. What they found waiting for them made the scout fleet look like a greeting party. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been restructured, not mining operations or random settlements. The entire belt had been transformed into an interconnected defensive grid, weapons platforms connected by energy beams, all rotating in patterns that should have been gravitationally impossible. Jupiter was wrong. Saturn was wrong. The gas giants orbited in configurations that violated basic physics, held in place by visible distortions in space-time. They weren't just planets anymore. They were fortresses. And the sun itself pulsed with rhythmic energy, like a heartbeat, like something alive and aware. The star that had birthed humanity was now part of their defense grid. The tactical displays showed contacts. So many contacts, not hundreds of ships, not thousands, tens of thousands. Small craft, large craft, medium craft, all angular and dark, all radiating the same reality-warping signature. The human fleet hung in formation between the Armada and Earth, waiting. Admiral, alive somehow and in command of a new Council flagship, stared at his display in dawning horror. He recognized this formation. He'd seen it before, in his last moments before the Supreme Adjudicator had folded into nothing. This wasn't a defense. It was a trap. The humans had let them come here, had wanted them to see, had wanted them to understand exactly how outmatched they were before offering terms one final time. A transmission came through. Fleet Admiral Elizabeth appeared on every screen in every ship of the Armada simultaneously. "Welcome to Sol System," she said calmly. "You have a choice to make." Part 3. The Council Armada hung in formation, 3,000 warships facing an enemy they couldn't comprehend. Admiral stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Resolute Dawn, and tried to calculate odds that made any sense. His combat computer kept returning the same result: insufficient data for tactical assessment. The human fleet hadn't moved. They simply maintained position between the Armada and Inner System, a wall of dark angular ships that radiated quiet menace. Behind them, Earth hung like a blue jewel in the darkness, seemingly defenseless. But knew better now. Nothing the humans did was what it seemed. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through." Fleet Admiral Elizabeth appeared on the main display. She looked tired, noticed. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been in her previous transmission. This was a person who hadn't slept properly in weeks, maybe months. "Admiral," she said, "I'm glad you survived. I was told the crews we captured would be returned safely. I'm pleased that promise was kept." Felt his mandibles tighten. The humans had simply released him and his crew 3 days after the battle, appearing at a council outpost in a single ship, dropping them off like packages, and vanishing again before questions could be asked. "You made your terms clear," said. "The council has sent this fleet as its response. We will not be threatened into submission." Nodded slowly as if she'd expected this. "I understand. Then I need you to understand something in return. What you faced in your previous engagement was a small expeditionary force. Scout ships with minimal armament. They were designed to disable and capture, not to destroy." She gestured off-screen, and the display split to show tactical data. "What you're facing now is Sol Defense Fleet. 50,000 combat vessels, all crewed and ready. The orbital platforms you're seeing number in the hundreds of thousands. Every moon, every planet, every major asteroid from here to the belt is part of an integrated defense network. And everything you can see is just the exterior layer." Studied the data. His sensors confirmed the numbers, impossible numbers. No species could build that much that fast, unless... "How?" he asked simply. Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "How did primitive humans build this in 50 years? We didn't. We built it in 5. Everything before that was laying groundwork, developing the theory, and hoping we'd never need to implement it." She leaned forward. "Admiral, do you know what happens to a species when they realize the rest of the galaxy sees them as livestock, as assets to be managed? When they learn their colony ships aren't disappearing due to accidents but being deliberately destroyed? You sent us a message. You told us we didn't matter, that our lives were worth less than your convenience." "Those decisions weren't mine," said quietly. "But you served the system that made them. You commanded fleets that enforced them." His voice remained calm, but something hard had entered her eyes. "We had a choice. Submit and hope your mercy improved over time, or ensure we could never be dismissed again. We chose survival. By threatening war. By being too dangerous to attack. By making the cost of subjugation higher than the value of control." Gestured again, and the display changed to show something that made blood run cold. It was Earth, but not the Earth visible through his viewports. This was a tactical display showing the planet's interior, and it was hollow. The entire core had been converted into something else, something that pulsed with the same reality-warping energy the human ships used. "That's our final defensive measure," said. "If your fleet attacks, if you somehow manage to overwhelm our ships and platforms, if you reach Earth itself and threaten we have the capability to destabilize local space-time. Sol's system and everything in it, including your armada, would cease to exist in normal space. We call it the final door. We'd rather die free than live under your thumb." The bridge fell silent. heard his crew's breathing quick and shallow. They understood what they were hearing. The humans weren't bluffing. They'd built a weapon that could delete an entire star system from existence, and they were willing to use it. "You're insane," said. "We're survivors," corrected. "There's a difference." Before could respond, another voice cut through the communication channel. OK appeared on a secondary screen. "Enough of this posturing. You have impressive ships and bold words, but you cannot possibly believe 3,000 warships will simply withdraw because you made threats. Humanity will submit to the Council's authority, or humanity will cease to exist. Those are your only options." Turned her attention to the, "With respect, those aren't the only options. There's a third path. The Council recognizes humanity as an equal. We establish new treaties based on mutual respect, and everyone lives. Trade continues. Diplomacy continues. The galaxy becomes richer for having another fully autonomous species contributing to it." "Unacceptable," OK growled. "You think we'll negotiate after you've destroyed our ships and made demands? This is how criminals and terrorists operate, not civilized beings." "Then what do you call destroying colony ships full of civilians?" Calm finally cracked slightly. "What do you call declaring species inferior based on age rather than capability? What do you call governing through fear and force? We learned from the best." Watched the exchange and felt something shift in his understanding. The humans weren't acting like conquerors or revolutionaries. They were acting like prey animals that had suddenly grown teeth and claws. Everything they'd built, every weapon and platform and ship, it was all defensive. They weren't trying to take Council space. They just wanted Council ships to stay out of theirs. Admiral said, interrupting the increasingly heated discussion with OK. "A question. If the Council recognizes your terms, what happens to all of this?" He gestured at the massive fleet surrounding them. "We go home," said simply. "We maintain our defensive capabilities, but we have no interest in conquest. We want to explore, to grow, to contribute to galactic civilization. We just want to do it without someone's boot on our neck. And if we refuse, if we attack?" His expression went cold. "Then we demonstrate why fear is the best teacher, and the Council will learn that lesson written in the wreckage of 3,000 ships." Made a decision. "Give me a moment, Admiral." He muted the connection and turned to face OK's image. "I formally request permission to withdraw the fleet." OK snapped immediately. "You have your orders. Advance and engage." "With respect, sir, that would be suicide. Everything my sensors tell me says the humans are showing truth. They have the capability to destroy this entire fleet, and if they're desperate enough, they'll take themselves down with us. Then they're fools and deserve extinction." "No," said quietly. "They're survivors, and they've proven they're better at surviving than we are at suppressing them." He cut the connection with the Council and reopened the channel to Admiral. "I'm going to do something that will likely end my career," said, "but I've seen enough destruction. I've been erased from existence once already. I don't fancy doing it again permanently." He took a deep breath. "Fleet Admiral, on my authority as commanding officer of this armada, I'm ordering a complete withdrawal from Sol system. Humanity's terms are accepted pending formal Council ratification." Behind him, his bridge crew erupted in surprise. The communication channels filled with confusion from the other fleet commanders, but kept his eyes on. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. That took courage." "It took pragmatism," corrected, "and perhaps shame. You were right. We dismissed you. We treated you as lesser, and you responded by becoming something we should have welcomed as equals from the beginning." The captured crews said, "All of them. Everyone we've taken in our defensive operations. They're being transferred to a rendezvous point outside Council space as we speak. Alive, unharmed, and with full medical support for those who need it. We don't want prisoners. We just wanted you to stop trying to kill us." Issued the withdrawal order. 3,000 warships began turning away from Earth, forming up for the jump back to Council space. It would take hours to coordinate properly. In that time, the human fleet remained stationary, weapons powered but not active, simply watching. As his ship prepared for FTL, opened a final private channel too. "What you've built here," he said. "It's impressive, terrifying but impressive. I have to ask, is the final door real? Would you really destroy your own system?" Smiled sadly. "Would you like to know something funny, Admiral? We don't actually know if it would work. The theory is sound, but we've never tested it. Couldn't test it without destroying a star system. The whole thing might do nothing but make a loud noise and waste a lot of power." Felt his breath catch. "Then you were bluffing." "No," said firmly. "We're uncertain, but we're absolutely willing to press that button if you forced us to. That's not a bluff. That's conviction. We'd rather die trying to stay free than live knowing we didn't." "That's insane." "That's human." His expression softened slightly. "For what it's worth, Admiral, I'm glad you made the choice you did. War benefits no one. Peace, even difficult peace, is better." "Will there be peace?" asked. "The Council is not known for accepting defeat gracefully." "Then they'll need to learn. We're not going away. We're not submitting. And every day we exist, we get stronger, smarter, and more capable. The Council can accept us as equals now, on reasonable terms, or they can wait until we're so far beyond them that their opinions don't matter anymore. The choice is theirs." The transmission ended. Watched through the viewport as his fleet completed its withdrawal. The human vessels remained in formation until the last Council ship had jumped to FTL. Then, as if responding to a signal, they broke formation and dispersed. Some headed deeper into the system. Others moved toward the orbital platforms. The massive defensive grid began powering down. It took 3 weeks for it to return to Council space. He expected to be arrested immediately, court-martialed for cowardice and insubordination. Instead, he found the Council in chaos. The footage from Sol system had leaked. Every species in the Council had seen the massive human fleet, the weaponized planets, the tactical assessments showing impossible odds. Public opinion was divided. Some called for total war regardless of cost. Others demanded negotiations. Many simply wanted nothing to do with humanity ever again. The Council vote took 4 days. It was the closest vote in recorded history. By a margin of 3 species, the Council agreed to recognize humanity's terms. 6 months later, the Treaty of Sol was formally. Humanity gained full autonomy and equal status. The Council issued a formal apology for past actions. Trade agreements were renegotiated on equal footing. And most importantly, restrictions on human expansion and research were removed. Was assigned as the permanent liaison to humanity, a position he accepted with mixed feelings. On his first day back on Earth, he met with Ambassador Sarah in the newly reopened human embassy. "Your sister is quite something," he said, referring to Fleet Admiral. Sarah smiled. "She's always been the tough one in the family. I just talk. She makes sure people listen." They stood together at a window overlooking Earth's cityscape. Somewhere above them, in orbit, the defense platforms remained active but dormant. Ready but not aggressive. A reminder of what humanity could do if pushed, but not a threat while treaties held. "Can I ask you something?" said. "All of this, the technology, the weapons, the ships, how did you do it so fast? Even with the theory, building that fleet should have taken generations." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Desperation is a powerful motivator. So is fear. When we learned our colony ships were being destroyed, when we realized the Council saw us as problems to be managed rather than people to be respected, something changed in humanity. We stopped playing by rules designed to keep us weak. Every resource, every genius mind, every manufacturing capability we had went toward one goal: survival. She turned to face him. "We had to become too dangerous to dismiss, too powerful to ignore, too costly to subjugate. It nearly broke us. The effort required, the sacrifices made, the resources diverted from everything else.